Jack, where's Jack? Where's Jack? Where is he? Jack, I want to see you. Great job, Jack. Thank you. What a job you do. You know, we have an incredible thing. We're always talking about the fake news and the bad, but we have guys, and these are the guys who should be getting Pulitzers.
All right, Jack Posobiec back here, Human Events Daily. Really excited to have our next guest on. We have Dr. Alejandro Diaz. He is from the Wellness Company, and he is the Chief of Pediatric Medicine. Dr. Diaz, how are you?
Hey, Jack, how are you? Thank you so much for having me on.
Of course, and it was great to see you, by the way, over there in Warsaw. I said, wow, the Wellness Company's even over here in Warsaw. You guys are really covering down on all your travel, because that's always when I get my Wellness Company kit. I'm always make sure I grab it for my travel now.
Yeah, thank God the Wellness Company, it's everywhere. Yeah, and it was a pleasure meeting you, and I think it was an amazing event during the inauguration of President Nawrocki.
No, it was great. And by the way, twc.health/poso, twc.health/poso. Get your travel kits, get your emergency kits, get everything. Folks, I want to play now this clip that's just come out. It's RFK Jr. talking about this huge announcement on mRNA vaccines. Let's play it.
At HHS, we have a division called the Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority, or BARDA. BARDA drives some of our most advanced scientific research. It funds developments of vaccines, drugs, diagnostics, and other tools to fight emerging diseases and national health threats. Over the past few weeks, BARDA reviewed 22 mRNA vaccine development investments and began canceling them. Let me explain why. Most of these shots are for flu or COVID, but as the pandemic showed us, mRNA vaccines don't perform well against viruses that infect the upper respiratory tract. Here's the problem. mRNA only codes for a small part of the viral proteins, usually a single antigen. One mutation and the vaccine becomes ineffective. Millions of people, maybe even you or someone you know, caught the Omicron variant despite being vaccinated. That's because a single mutation can make mRNA vaccines ineffective. The same risk applies to flu. After reviewing the science and consulting top experts at NIH and FDA, HHS has determined that mRNA technology poses more risks than benefits for these respiratory viruses. That's why, after extensive review, BARDA has begun the process of terminating these 22 contracts, totaling just under $500 million.
So, huge announcement from our Secretary of Health there, RFK Jr. Dr. Alejandro Diaz, can you walk us through why it was, and I think we've all sort of heard about the issues with mRNA, but why was it specifically that RFK Jr. came in and said, we're canceling this, it's terminated?
You know, Jack, what I can tell you is that this is bad news for a few, but great news for the rest of the world. You know, as an immunologist and very actively and an active voice internationally during the initiation of the COVID operation, I was against this mass vaccination because that was an experimental vaccine. And now we know, unfortunately, the damage, it's already done. But what I admire and deeply admire about Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr., as well as Director of NIH, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, is that they promise to make America healthy again through the MAHA movement. And that's exactly what they are delivering. So I'm very proud of them. I am very proud of President Trump, and I am very proud of what they're doing because that's exactly what we need. But let me make something very clear, and it's important to mention this to your audience. Secretary Kennedy, he wants to make sure that everybody understands that the research for mRNA will be only for upper respiratory viruses. And I think that's an amazing decision. I'm very proud of them as an immunologist and obviously as a pediatrician.
So when we look at this now, the response from Big Pharma, and anyone can just go see the headlines, Wall Street Journal has a huge op-ed out saying RFK's dangerous attack on mRNA research, biopharma drive, Kennedy's mRNA cuts could set U.S. science back, et cetera. So even the LA Times is coming out now, the BBC, NPR, they're fact-checking him left and right, Washington Post. Are we seeing this big industry response because of the fact that he's doing exactly what he said he would do on the campaign trail, and that he's actually demanding that real studies be done before U.S. taxpayer money is going to this new technology?
That is exactly right, Jack. And he's delivering what he promised, and I'm very supportive of him. I had a very deep conversation with him once through Zoom, and it's amazing the amount of knowledge that he has in terms of medicine. He's a lawyer, but I bet he knows. Sometimes he knows more things than many of my colleagues. So they took an amazing turn of canceling these 22 mRNA contracts worth nearly $500 million. And that's something. That's why I say bad news for a few and great news for the rest of the world. And I think this is, we're going on the right track.
And so when it comes down to it, though, how should people be looking at these mRNA vaccines? There's a lot of talk about them, a lot of skepticism, a lot of worry. We now have several years of data, just in terms of their mass adoption by a lot of people, obviously, who took the vaccines. What are we seeing that's come out as a result of this?
So let me go through the numbers, Jack. There are approximately 5.5 billion people who unfortunately took those jabs worldwide. And we are seeing the damage. We are seeing the collateral of all this, and the side effects, from myocarditis to pericarditis to autoimmune disease, problems on the skin, urticaria, hives, and infertility. So many problems, and I want to mention, the turbo cancers. We are seeing an increase in turbo cancers from lymphomas, breast cancer, brain cancer, you name it. There's a lot of cancer going on, and there's a potential risk that we have to acknowledge, and just right after the application of this mass vaccination worldwide, which I consider a human catastrophe.
And so when we're looking at it that way, can you walk us through some of those symptoms for people who do potentially have these injuries?
Well, we see, I don't know if you're familiar with POTS syndrome. These are patients that they start to get dizziness, palpitation, and they weakness and things along that line. Their life just changed. That's only for POTS, and we're starting to see a lot of POTS everywhere. I diagnose POTS very regularly in my clinic. Also, myocarditis, which is inflammation of the heart, pericarditis, which is the inflammation of the sac that covers the heart, a lot of thyroid problems, autoimmune problems, skin problems, and so this was a catastrophe. I was very hardly criticized because because I predicted the pandemic a year before. That's kind of my journey. I predicted the pandemic because a year before, on the third week of October 2018, because I was watching very closely what was happening at the global sphere, what was happening in Europe, what was happening in Canada, United States, Central America, South America, and what happened during the gathering of the caravans in Honduras on the third week of October 2018. And we were just about to be 100 years after the last pandemic, which was the Spanish flu in 1918. So I only thought, this is chaos and we need a reset. And I thought that it was a pandemic coming, and I said it on national television.
we saw so much come out and everything that was done, and then they handed the entire country over to Dr. Anthony Fauci. And by the way, every time I think about this guy and what he did, and you go back to it, Ed Martin now has the emails that are starting to come out that said, you know what, even Biden's Department of Justice had problems with the pardons that were being signed by this auto pen. That thing is completely invalid. That pardon was not signed by the President of the United States, and he was certainly not acting in good faith and of sound mind when he wrote that thing. I think Dr. Fauci's pardon should be challenged. I think they should challenge that, take it all the way to the Supreme Court. It was obviously not done properly, and he needs to be investigated. By the way, states can also go after this guy, and look at what he did, the lies that were told, the fact that this happened and affected so many people. That's what Dr. Fauci needs to worry about. We'll be right back. Jack Posobiec, America's Voice, Human Rights Daily.